7. Now even the aquifers betray you. What little water is left comes out of pipes with a warning label. This is the point where water security becomes water anxiety. Level 7 is known by many names: extreme drought, hydrological drought, deep groundwater crisis. But in plain terms, it's the stage where your taps still run, but only for now. Major reservoirs drop below 20%. Wells are drilled deeper, but the deeper you go, the older the water. In India, nearly 60% of irrigation relies on groundwater, but levels in some regions drop by 1 to 2 meters every year. In Arizona, homeowners now pay tens of thousands to deepen their private wells, or truck in water entirely. And the water that remains, it's more saline, more toxic, more contested. Legal battles erupt between states, provinces, even neighbors. In 2023, the Colorado River Compact reached crisis point, with 7 US states fighting over who gets what share of a shrinking resource. Meanwhile, the soil turns to powder, wind kicks up dry silt into the sky. Respiratory illness spikes, and if a fire starts, it moves like it owns the land, because it does. At level 7, prioritize drought-resistant landscaping, xeriscaping, and harvest rainwater from gutters. These become critical water buffers during municipal rationing. Level 8. Now nature stops pretending it can recover. You're not just seeing dead crops, you're seeing dead ecosystems. Rivers don't just run dry, they vanish from the map. The Murray-Darling Basin in Australia faced this in 2019, when entire wetlands turned to cracked earth and native fish died by the millions. In Spain, satellite images show the Tagus and Duero rivers shrinking into ghost streams. And in Chile's Central Valley, some lakes have been dry for over a decade. At level 8, the ecological drought begins. It's no longer about farming or drinking, it's about extinction. Bird migrations break down, amphibians vanish, tree cover collapses, desertification begins to spread, not naturally, but violently. In Africa's Sahel, desert has claimed over 60 miles of arable land in some places. China's Gansu and Inner Mongolia provinces are now home to ghost forests, where trees still stand but no longer grow. This stage also weakens carbon sinks. As plants die, they no longer absorb CO2. And worse, dry soil emits more carbon than it stores. So drought isn't just a symptom, it becomes a climate feedback loop. Advocate for soil restoration projects. Composting, mulching, and tree planting stabilize land and reverse small-scale desertification before it spreads. Level 9. Now drought writes laws and breaks them. This stage is no longer local. It crosses borders, cripples trade, and lights the match of political instability. This is agricultural collapse, not theoretical. In 2010, a drought in Russia reduced the wheat harvest by 40%. The Kremlin halted exports. That drove up food prices across the Middle East, which fueled unrest, which became protests, which in Tunisia sparked the Arab Spring. All from a drought. At level 9, food insecurity spreads. Staple crops, maize, wheat, rice, fail in multiple regions simultaneously. This is called multiple breadbasket failure, and it's one of the greatest risks to global food security. The World Bank warns that by 2050, climate-induced droughts could force up to 216 million people to migrate. And in places where there's not enough food, the military steps in. Riots happen, and entire governments fall. But the worst part, even regions with water feel the shock. Because when supply chains break, everyone starves slower. Diversify food intake and support community agriculture. Relying on distant supply chains makes you vulnerable when large-scale crop systems fail. Level 10. Now we leave history and step into modeled futures. Level 10 isn't speculative because it's unlikely. It's speculative because it hasn't fully happened yet. But it's coming. This is permanent drought, also called aridification. Not a dry season, not a bad decade, but a shift in climate where wet years simply stop arriving. Regions like the American Southwest, parts of the Mediterranean, and Southern Africa are already entering this transition. In climate models, these zones shift from seasonally dry to semi-arid, permanently. Lake Mead and Lake Powell, two of the largest reservoirs in the US, have dropped so low that hydropower output may shut down entirely in coming decades. And this isn't just America. Spain's vineyards are withering, Morocco's dams are shrinking, Mexico City may run out of water entirely by 2030. Some districts already rely on truck deliveries once a week. At this level, desalination becomes the norm. Not luxury, not last resort, but basic survival. Yet desalination is expensive, energy intensive, and in poorer countries, nearly impossible to scale. Level 10 isn't a drought, it's a redefinition of what is habitable. Monitor your region's annual precipitation trends. If a drought has lasted over 10 years, it may be part of a larger aridification trend. Long-term relocation might become necessary. Level 11. This is when the atmosphere forgets how to rain. Speculative? Yes, but plausible, under high-emission climate scenarios. This is hyper-aridification, a world where parts of the Earth experience less than 25 millimeters of rain per year, indefinitely. Not because of El Niño or La Niña, but because the global water cycle breaks. In this future, subtropical high-pressure zones expand. Rain belts shift north and south. Entire equatorial regions, once rich in biodiversity, dry out into bone. Amazonian rainforests? Scientists warn that with just 20 to 25% deforestation, the Amazon could flip to savanna, drying out in a climate tipping point that would be irreversible. The Sahel in Africa could expand into Central Africa. Australia's interior could fully desertify. California could become more like Baja, Baja more like sand. In this world, countries spend billions not just on water, but on moving populations, entire towns relocated, farmlands abandoned. Global water wars are no longer movie scripts, and while this hasn't fully happened yet, the early signs are already visible. In 2024, Chile experienced its 15th consecutive year of drought. In 2023, Spain's water reserves hit 37% capacity, even before summer. At this stage, self-sufficiency is survival. Invest in home filtration, grey water recycling, and modular off-grid systems. They may become your lifeline. Level 12. We leave the world we know. This is planetary drought. It hasn't happened on Earth, but it has happened on Mars. Once, Mars had rivers, lakes, possibly oceans. Evidence of fluvial erosion covers its surface. But then, it lost its atmosphere, and with it, all liquid water, forever. Level 12 is fully speculative. But it teaches us this. Water isn't guaranteed, not even on a planet where it once carved valleys. What if Earth, through unchecked warming and ecosystem collapse, entered a hothouse state where the water cycle slows? What if evaporation outpaces precipitation? What if polar melt shifts jet streams permanently? Models suggest that if the Earth warms beyond 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, some regions might no longer generate rainfall at all, despite having once been fertile. Not desert, not drought, but silence, in the air, in the sky, in the soil. Level 12 isn't a forecast, it's a warning, because the absence of water is not just a crisis, it's extinction in slow motion. Stay informed on global climate thresholds, and vote, advocate, and act to keep Earth's climate habitable, because there is no emergency plan for level 12.